You are listening to the Advocates of Aging podcast. This podcast is produced by the ABA Commission on Law and Aging. Listen to hear interviews and stories on topics related to law and aging, including best practice tips for professionals and career advice. Age is not just a number, it is an opportunity for growth and fulfillment. These episodes will explore the hurdles people face when aging, as well as opportunities for improving advocacy and strengthening the legal rights of others.
Hi, I'm Jessica Brock, here along with Erica Costello. We're with the American Bar Association's Commission on Law and Aging. You are listening to our Advocates of Aging podcast. World Elder Abuse Awareness Day has been celebrated every year since its launch in 2006. One thing the international community can celebrate this year is the United Nations Human Rights Council recently passing a resolution to begin the drafting of an international treaty on the rights of older persons. The Commission on Law and Aging is a part of the history and work that led to this treaty drafting. You can read more about it in Bifocal. Our guests today are also part of that history and are giants in the field of elder justice. We are absolutely delighted to welcome Charlie Sabatino and Erica Wood as our guests today. Charlie Sabatino is a retired consultant on aging and law after retiring from serving as director of the American Bar Association's Commission on Law and Aging from 2005 to 2022. Prior to that, Charlie served as senior counsel to the ABA Commission from 1984 and as senior law project counsel for Legal Services of Northern Virginia from 1979 to 1984. His work with the American Bar Association focused on research, education, and policy development in areas of health and long-term care, guardianship and capacity, ethics, decision-making rights, end-of-life care, and legal services delivery to older persons. Erica Wood served as Assistant Director of the American Bar Association Commission on Law and Aging and was associated with the Commission from 1980 to 2020. Erica worked primarily on issues concerning adult guardianship, health and financial decision-making, legal services delivery, dispute resolution, health and long-term care, and access to courts. Since her retirement from the ABA in 2020, Erica has consulted on a number of national guardianship and related projects. Complete copies of their bios will be provided in the notes on our website. World Elder Abuse Awareness Day has been celebrated every year since its launch in 2006. One thing the international community can celebrate this year is the United Nations Human Rights Council recently passing a resolution to begin the drafting of an international treaty on the rights of older persons. The Commission on Law and Aging is a part of the history and work that led to this treaty drafting. You can read more about it in Bifocal. Our guests today are also part of that history and are giants in the field of elder justice. We are absolutely delighted to welcome Charlie Sabatino and Erica Wood as our guests today. Charlie Sabatino is a retired consultant on aging and law after retiring from serving as director of the American Bar Association's Commission on Law and Aging from 2005 to 2022. Prior to that, Charlie served as senior counsel to the ABA Commission from 1984 and as senior law project counsel for Legal Services of Northern Virginia from 1979 to 1984. His work with the American Bar Association focused on research, education, and policy development in areas of health and long-term care, guardianship and capacity, ethics, decision-making rights, end-of-life care, and legal services delivery to older persons. Erica Wood served as Assistant Director of the American Bar Association Commission on Law and Aging and was associated with the Commission from 1980 to 2020. Erica worked primarily on issues concerning adult guardianship, health and financial decision-making, legal services delivery, dispute resolution, health and long-term care, and access to courts. Since her retirement from the ABA in 2020, Erica has consulted on a number of national guardianship and related projects. Complete copies of their bios will be provided in the notes on our website. First, we'd like to just hear about you. Tell us about yourself and your careers. Um, what prompted you to enter the legal profession and to work in the aging space? And maybe we'll start with you, Charlie.
Sure, sure. I sort of meandered into the field of aging because out of college I was a social work counselor in a group home for adolescents, and I really wanted to work in juvenile justice. Went to Georgetown, which has a great juvenile justice clinic, and then wanted to work in a legal aid program. But all the legal aid jobs were rare then, and they are still kind of rare these days. And a position opened up in Northern Virginia for the Senior Citizens Council, and I was kind of on the desperate side, so I took that. And within months, I fell in love with my clients, and in a sense, never looked back. And after working in legal services for almost 6 years, I had an opportunity to go to the Commission on Law and Aging in 1984, and went there. I sort of had been following in Erica Wood's footsteps, my co-presenter today, because she was working in legal services right before I got there, and she was already working in the commission before I got there. And I stuck with the commission through 2022, so 36 years, and the last several as director of the commission. So it was a very unexpected but rewarding and ultimately committed experience.
Great.
Erica, how about you?
Well, thanks, Charlie. Well, so I wouldn't say that mine was exactly meandering, but what happened is that I actually majored in anthropology, which turned out to be a good background for the law, by the way. But when I got out, I soon realized I didn't want to just study human cultural and societal structures and all that. I actually wanted to change it. I wanted to make things better, as we said back then, make the world a better place for people to live in. So I wanted to actively make changes. So I developed an interest in public service, and I thought that law was a good way to enter that public service field. As far as aging, of course, there was no law and aging field back then, but I always had an interest in the passage of time from the very beginning, from as far back as I can remember. I always wondered, what would it like to be like to be old? I had a friend, and we used to take long walks, and as teenagers do, talk about all the things that teenagers talk about. But we also talked about what would it be like to be old, and what could we do to make that better, to make aging better, and to make aging a better place to be. So that's kind of where my interest came from. Shall I move on to the next? The next question is so closely related, Jessica. It says, how did you end up where you are now? And I see Charlie kind of meandered into that. When I graduated from law school, like I said, there was no law and aging field. I had about 5 areas of public interest law that I was interested in. And I ended up in, at that time, it was the very, very, very beginning of law and aging. And in 1974, there were brand new grants that were given to promote the delivery of legal services under Title III of the Older Americans Act. And there was one of those grants given to the National Council of Senior Citizens. And I ended up there working with David Marlin, who was one of the early pioneers in law and aging, and was actually my very first mentor. And so I worked there for a number of years, looking at, well, we can go there. Well, I guess I'll continue. Not only did we promote Title III legal services for older people, but we looked at a number of issues ourselves. Particularly, I did work in hearing aid sales and condo conversions. I remember that David Marlin used to call me Ms. Condo Conversion. I spent so much time on that fascinating issue, which kind of was a prelude to many of the housing issues that we see today. But in 1978, the American Bar Association created a task force to determine if it should have a commission that actually focused on aging. What a bizarre and interesting concept. I was the Young Lawyers Division representative to that task force. And when the commission began in 1979, I became one of its first members and then came on as staff along with the first director, Nancy Coleman.
That's fascinating. I didn't think you were going to mention condominiums or hearing aid sales today. So that's both of you have fascinating stories. When you think about your trajectory at the ABA and just in your career in general, what do you think led you to where you are now? Was it certain passions or relationships or interest in certain topics? What sort of led you on your way to where you are now?
A lot of it has to do with, I think, of it as mentorship. Nancy Coleman was the first director of the commission, and she had a very broad understanding of aging and had great ambition for the commission to be able to fulfill the needs, which were great. And I learned a lot under her, and that led when both Erica and I joined the commission. There was no such thing as elder law, and it was very rewarding to see the development of that field. Nancy had a role in bringing together private attorneys and public attorneys who were interested in aging issues, which eventually led to the creation of the National Academy of Elder Law Attorneys. And then the commission within the ABA has always been a center point, a focal point for aging issues, which has led to other sections and divisions of the ABA developing aging committees. And that is really flourishing today. And the commission, continues to play a pivotal role in sparking that progress and interest. So it's and it's still an evolving field and under great challenges today.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Charlie. And I'm going to go ahead and take us down a little bit of memory lane here with both yours and Erica's involvement with the commission. Tell us a little bit more about your work with the commission, and are there any projects or especially accomplishments that you're especially proud of during your time here at the Commission on Law and Aging?
Well, I'll take a stab at that. First, I just want to set the scene by saying that it was such a thrill to work all those years at the Commission on Law and Aging. Some people say to me, why did you stay so long? Why did you spend decades at the Commission? And the thing is that not only were the issues always changing, there's just a kaleidoscope of brand new issues all the time, but really working with these giants in the field and working with people that were so dedicated, so innovative, was something that definitely influenced what I did and what I wanted to do in every way. Just being right there at the crossroads of law and aging in that sort of interdisciplinary soup. For example, my early interest in guardianship, I didn't even know what guardianship was at the beginning. I remember learning what it was and being very interested, but it was discussion around that commission table that really made the difference. And I can remember two commission members arguing every commission meeting. One would say, John, we have to do away with guardianship because it just removes people's rights and it has to be eliminated from the scene. And then John would say, George, no, we always are going to need guardianship. It's an essential protection. What we need is stronger procedural due process. And I was looking, that balance between rights and needs, that inherent tension really caught my interest and led me to guardianship, on which I've spent, as you probably know, quite a bit of time. During my time, we were involved in all four national summits, national guardianship summits. I do what you do now, Erica, in tracking the guardianship state legislation. I did that from 1988 to 2017, and actually, some people wouldn't think that was fun, but I always thought that was a lot of fun. And just to see it over the years was quite a thrill. We, of course, did projects on public guardianship monitoring, restoration of rights data, all kinds of specific aspects of guardianships. But I think one thing of which I'm most proud is the development of state wings, working interdisciplinary networks of guardianship stakeholders, because I always have a strong belief that if you bring people together, set them around the table, get them to have those aha moments and listen to each other, good things are going to come about, and the good things could come about for guardianship reform in that way. So that's kind of looking back over my guardianship memory lane.
Yeah, there are so many different projects that we were involved in. The commission itself is literally a think tank of people from multiple disciplines. So we had some of the best thinkers in gerontology, neurology, policy, state policy, federal policy, academia, and you name it. And that was such an exciting mix that really led to identifying opportunities and needs, which then led to finding grant money, which led to projects. So one of the reasons I've stayed so long with the commission is because the job was never the same from year to year to year, because we were always entering new fields, new endeavors, facing new questions. And I had a particular focus, even though I dealt with literally every topic, I had a particular focus on healthcare decision making. And that's a great example of the diversity of things the commission does, because we did everything. I was able to do everything in that context, from working on two uniform acts on healthcare decision making, testifying before Senate Aging Committee when the Federal Patient Self-Determination Act was being considered, to helping to producing a video, educational video on advanced care planning with the legendary stage actress Helen Hayes, which came out of the blue, which was an amazing experience. And like Erica, we did state by state comparison of state laws, which gave us the opportunity to work with state policy folks in a consultative fashion to help them improve their laws. And work with groups, state advocacy groups, and groups like Aging with Dignity to develop advanced directives, all the way to being able to speak on this issue and other elder rights issues in the United Nations Working Group on Aging, which is still an ongoing process that I know Erica Costello, you are involved in now. So it's every topic has a million facets, and having the breadth and backup to dive into that is just unique in the world of law and aging.
And I'll say that one aspect of that touches on both healthcare decision making and guardianship, and something that Charlie and I collaborated on over the years, was capacity, the topic of capacity. And that was a topic that came up over and over again at the commission. And the commission, of course, was interdisciplinary in nature. And so out of those discussions arose a partnership between the American Bar Association Commission and the American Psychological Association's Committee on Aging, and also eventually the National College of Probate Judges also took a role. And over a number of meetings, we had structured discussions, interdisciplinary discussions on just what is this animal of capacity? What do we mean by it? How does it play out in all of the legal issues and in people's lives? And we developed, based on those interdisciplinary discussions, a series of 3 handbooks, one for judges, one for psychologists, and one for lawyers. And then the handbook for lawyers, and they were widely disseminated, and I think have had quite an influence in the field of capacity and thinking about capacity. And then the one for lawyers, we actually is one of the last things that I was involved in toward the end of my tenure at the commission, was to work with Charlie and others in updating that lawyer's handbook. So it just shows how things can come together in a setting like that to create real progress.
Yes, thank you for bringing that up. Obviously, the handbooks have stayed very popular with the commission, and the themes that you brought up of healthcare decision making, guardianship reform, capacity have all been something that the current commission is very active and involved in as well. So um, you have both been very involved in these topics, during your tenure here at COLA. So what have you noticed that has stayed the same or are now changing with the times?
Well, I'll take a stab at that. People are living longer, and the issues of aging while you're alive and quality of life are more and more important. Um, I mean, one thing that has always struck me, though, is the complexity or the diversity in aging. No matter what kind of function you're looking at, whether it's mental functioning or physical functioning, there's greater diversity among older persons than there is among any other age group in the population. We get more different as we get older. But with the challenges that things like living with disability and dementia for those who experience it, that juxtaposed with the greater technical internet and technology sophistication has made exploitation even that much more sophisticated, and gets worse every year. We see more and more issues of new ways every month of how people can be exploited. And it's not just older persons, but they're particularly vulnerable because exploiters target people who have some sorts of deficits that they can take advantage of. So that also brings to mind that also over the years, the need for all lawyers to have some grounding in aging has become more and more apparent to me. Now, I taught elder law course at Georgetown Law School for 30 years, and the number of law schools have courses like this, and there's a certain number of students, not the majority, who really do that because they want to go in to be aging and be elder law attorneys. Most of the students at a place like Georgetown are there because even though they're going into corporate law or some other highfalutin area of law, they have parents and grandparents, and they are starting to see these issues. So they know that they need some grounding in aging issues. So the need for lawyers to have a footing in aging has become more and more apparent to me over the years. And finally, the complexity of programs supporting and affecting older persons becomes they get more and more complex, and part of that is unavoidable, but it means that people need more help in navigating things like Medicare and Medicaid. And one of the things I do now on the micro level is to do counseling in Medicare and Medicaid because there's such a need for it. So those are some of the trends that I see happening in my experience. Erica, how about you?
Yeah, well, first of all, I'd like to second everything you just said and underline and highlight all of that. One thing that I have noticed over and over again, and something that sort of defines my whole, I like to say this, that was my life, that is the difference between law and practice. So I worked for many, many years to improve guardianship laws, but hey, that doesn't necessarily mean that guardianship practice will improve. And as a young lawyer, I was quite surprised to discover that when a law was passed and I was ready to wash my hands of it and go on to something else, that was actually not the end of the story. That was just the beginning. And we had the whole implementation to look at. So I think that that is something that has to be learned over and over again, and that is very important. And while it's great that there are uniform laws out there and that people keep working to change the laws, there's so much that needs to be done in the practice as far as education and standards and outreach, technical assistance. And so I think that those two, of course, have to work hand in hand, but I kind of see that cycle going on over and over again. And speaking of deja vu all over again, there are certain issues that just seem to come back around and around and around. And I don't know. I'm sure that progress has been made, but it seems sometimes like you have to win the same battles again and again. And one of those is the whole topic of less restrictive options, options that are less restrictive than guardianship, which was seen as a bright new idea back about 40 years ago, and sort of comes around and around again. And as turnover happens and new people come into the field, they discover this over and over again, which is good. But I think finding a way to push enough so that idea gets more grounding is important. Same thing happens in nursing homes where it seems that one has to fight the same battles of individualized care and staffing and over again, particularly with workforce issues. Everybody agreed 20, 30, 40 years ago and in the nursing home reform law that all of these things were important. And yet we're battling, and here we are battling again. But all that having been said, I think it's really good to see bright new advocates come into the field. And one thing that we always did at the commission is to have law student interns. And that was such a joy. And hopefully we made a difference in their lives. And they certainly helped us on a whole number of topics, and I think we advanced the field in that way.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Erica. And we definitely see the value, and we'll be having some law student interns coming in here very shortly this summer, and look forward to working with them as well. Talk to us a little bit more about some of the surprises that you've seen so far in aging, either personally or professionally, since your time here at COLA or during your time here at COLA.
Well, I'll take a stab at that. And I want to go back to what Charlie said earlier about diversity in aging. And I think that surprised me at first and continued to surprise me throughout all of the years, because just the rate of aging is so different for different people, the conditions that, that the health conditions, all of the challenges and priorities, so that if you've seen one person age, you've seen one person age. And we do sort of grow into ourselves over time, and there are many factors that can influence that. But think of that in terms of ageism. Robert Butler in 1975, which was 50 years ago, wrote the brand new shiny book, Why Survive Being Old in America. 50 years. And a lot has changed since then, and we've seen a lot of progress along the way, but ageism persists, and there still are stereotypes as far as age, and there's still age bias out there. And I think that's something that surprises me, because people are so different, there's still such a strong bent in our society towards ageism. And I just think personally, too, as far as aging, I think I was surprised that it's so much work. It's, if you want to be healthy when you're older, which everybody does, it's a lot of work, and we just don't see it that way when we're young. But it certainly is a challenge. And I think the other thing that's obvious about, or at least to me, about aging is that personal connections, family connections, network connections, colleagues become all the more important over time.
Yeah, the tenacity of ageism is something that has always, I don't know if it surprised me, but it's kind of been constant in my experience. And the example I use for that now is an area that I'm working in now, is in the nursing home reform area with the Moving Forward Coalition, which is its mission is to fulfill the recommendations of the National Academy of Sciences from its report a couple of years ago. And the aspect of nursing home care that seems to be so lively accepted by society is putting people in institutions. The only two groups of people in our country that we routinely put in long-term care settings that are institutional are convicted convicts and older people, older and disabled persons who are sick in facilities called nursing homes. And there are alternatives. We just haven't, as a society, had the I don't know whether it's awareness or willingness or what to create alternatives, because there are alternatives out there for very small household models like the greenhouse homes. There's the Eden Alternative, the Pioneer Project, that have all been leaders in developing small, more community-like settings to take care of people in dignified and quality ways. And we're not there, and the whole industry and government doesn't seem to think that there's any need to shake up the norm right now.
You may have sort of alluded to this already, but we'd like to know what you're working on now that's exciting to you and how you became involved with it. Charlie, do you want to talk about that?
Well, again, when I left the commission, it freed me from the administrative and the supervisory kind of duties that take up a lot of the time, as the two of you know, and fundraising, and to focus on a little bit more finely tuned on a couple things that are of interest to me. And nursing home, long-term care in general has always been a major concern of mine. And the timing of the National Academy of Sciences report coincided with my leaving the commission, and so has provided opportunities to work with that group, particularly focusing on trying to change the model from institutional to small household, and that has a long way to go. With Erica, I've also continued to be involved on guardianship issues through what's known as the National Guardianship Network, which you guys are very involved in too. And on the micro level, the nursing home issues are kind of my macro level work, and the micro level is doing the counseling on Medicare and Medicaid on the local level, serving on local commission on aging, and kind of doing things more directly with the community and folks, which is very fulfilling. And sometimes you don't have the time to do that when you're in a position that has a national focus. And finally, related to dementia, there have always been very difficult ethical issues that lawyers face in dealing with clients who have any kind of diminished capacity. And there are ethical rules that have tried to guide lawyers, but they've always had ambiguities and flaws in them that have been hard to grapple with. They were last changed in 2000 when the model rules of professional conduct were revised significantly. And there is a group in the ABA now that I'm involved in that is trying to rewrite the model rules that focus on dealing with persons with what is called currently diminished capacity, which we are now calling persons with decision-making limitations. Because for a lawyer, the aspect of capacity that lawyers are dealing with is decision-making. Capacity has so many different kinds of facets that it's too big a global term to say that that's what lawyers are dealing with. They're only dealing with the decision-making capacity part of it. Erica, how about you?
I have always had the idea that working at the national, state, and local levels sort of together would be really good, because you could see how all those three things interrelate, and you can bring things from the national level to the state and local level and bring really interesting pilot projects and so on from the state and local level to the national level. And that's kind of what I tried to do throughout the years, because I was a member of my local Commission on Aging on and off over the years, and on and off over the years, very active in the Northern Virginia Aging Network, which promotes a platform of aging issues every year at the state legislative level. But of course, with retirement, I have more time for that. And so I put in a great deal of time, as Charlie knows, because we're both on the Commission on, well, I was on the Commission on Aging. I still hang around on the Commission on Aging and the Northern Virginia Aging Network, and issues like affordable assisted living, just pounding on that issue, to think that older people who need assisted living and are not rich really have no choice. Just to think of that is just so aggravating that it really stimulates a lot of local advocacy at the state and local level. So that's been very, very important to me. At the same time, I've continued my work in guardianship because I didn't feel that I was finished with it. I didn't want all of the things that were still ongoing, I wanted to be a part of and to continue to make progress. And so I've done a great deal of consulting in guardianship issues with various colleagues. There was a fascinating project on public guardianship in one of the California counties. There was a project on guardianship abuse for the Department of Justice. Worked with a colleague for the National Center on Elder Abuse on the crossovers between guardianship and elder abuse and how to look at that kind of Venn diagram of where they intersect. And now I'm one of a number of people working on a very interesting project in California for the JCC, the Judicial Conference of California, to look at conservatorships in California and their implementation by the court system. So it's, again, that national level alongside with the state and local.
Thanks. It's great to see that you both are so very involved in issues of, on aging right now. We're going through a lot of different changes right now throughout the country. What do you guys see as the most pressing and pertinent issues in aging right now, given all the changes going on?
Well, that's pretty obvious in that the current administration is attempting to eliminate or cut back the whole range of programs supporting older persons and persons with disabilities. The dissolution of the Administration for Community Living is a major, kick in the back of our aging services. The Administration for Community Living has been the center point and enabler of all programs across the country. Aging challenges are similar across all states, and you can't leave it up to individual states to solve these problems. They don't have the bandwidth, the expertise, or the resources to do it. It takes the federal government's involvement in it. And the Administration for Community Living, which combined both aging and disability, has been an incredibly efficient and focused way to do that. And seeing that being dissolved, and along with many aging programs being cut back, is just ignoring our older population entirely.
I couldn't agree more. I just think that the Older Americans Act is a gem. It's always been a gem. It's something that's improved the lives of older people for 40 years or so. And to see the dismantling of the Administration for Community Living is really heartbreaking and takes us way back to the time before states were supported in their efforts to help people make better lives for older people. To see it broken apart seems tragic, and in fact, heard somebody say it's an assault on aging, and I think that to be true. So I think sustaining not only the Older Americans Act and the Administration for Community Living, but other programs like SNAP and of course Medicaid, and states like my own state where Medicaid expansion is certainly at issue with changes that might be made in Medicaid. And then Social Security, I know that there have been some back and forth on that, but and some changes recently, but I think the customer service and it's really seems a crime to see that being cut back and people's access to information about their benefits being at risk. I recently read a book about Frances Perkins, the FDR's labor secretary of labor, and it was really Frances Perkins who conceived of and developed the idea and put it forward of Social Security and the Social Security Act. And then we had on our commission, of course, Arthur Fleming, who was vitally involved with that and with supplemental security income. To see those things being injured in such a way is really heartbreaking.
Are there anything that attorneys and advocates can do to support older adults during these challenging times that we have going on?
Yeah, but the advice is the same for them as is for everybody else, is to speak up in every avenue that you can. And for the legal profession, that has meant challenging so many of these changes in court. Not every individual attorney is going to be involved with that for sure, but they can't speak up at the local and protest, advocate. Don't stay silent.
And to that, I just say yes.
Well, that's great. And I also want to ask if there's any words of wisdom or advice that you have for people who are interested in entering the field of aging, or people who might be considering the field of aging right now.
Well, there isn't a easy flight path like there is to many other aspects of age of law. If you want to do corporate law or any of a number of other things, you've got to put some extra effort into it. You've got to find people and organizations that'll support that interest. If you're in a school that has a law and aging course or any courses like on Social Security or disability, take those. You can, as a law student, reach out to organizations like the National Academy of Elder Law Attorneys and get involved. You can get involved in ABA's Young Lawyers, and as a young lawyer, you can be a liaison to any of the committees that focus on aging issues. And take advantage of internships. Go look for internships with the Commission on Law and Aging, with Justice and Aging, with National Council on Aging. There's a lot of groups out there that use students. And when going back to my days when I had to do the hiring, I put a lot of weight on people's internship experiences. And you don't get paid, or you don't get paid much, but it can make a big difference in helping you move ahead.
That's right, Charlie. And I think all of those are good paths. And I think despite the things that have happened in recent months, I think that the Aging Network is strong and vigorous, and that it's a good place to be and a good place to work. And I think that being in that crossroads of law and aging is even better. And so I would certainly encourage people to follow up if they have an interest in that through all the paths that Charlie mentioned. I think that the people are very dedicated, people in the Aging Network and people in elder law and the whole elder law field. And I do think that one has to expect and be aware of the incremental nature of progress in this field, obviously many other fields, but I think often we feel that it's 2 steps forward and 1 step back, but it's not always smooth sailing, and the challenges are many, but they're very rewarding. I think it's important to look back as we're doing now, see what came before, and look forward and to be a mentor for others. And if you're coming into the field, look for a mentor. I think that I always envision it as sort of helping new advocates to get over the wall. As I think about it, if there's a barrier towards progress, maybe we can't completely end up where we want, but we can give new advocates a push to get over the wall so that progress can be made.
Well, thank you so much for your words of wisdom and advice, and for taking the time to talk with us today about your wonderful career and your time here at the Commission. If you are interested in further information on this and other topics, you can check out our podcast notes on our website. You can also listen to this and other episodes by visiting the ABA Commission on Law and Aging's YouTube page. Remember to like and subscribe to this to be sure to get any updates. We'll look forward to having you join us for our next episode. In the meantime, keep on advocating for the legal rights of all.